Set is over for Florida State football. Now it's on to the stretch drive and the final five for FSU, and it starts at home this Saturday against Georgia Tech. And of course, we get it going right here at Florida State Seminoles Live with all of you each and every Wednesday night at 6 Eastern. You know the deal. You ultimately produce the show. Here is our executive producer, of course, Jason, but you ultimately produce the show. Leave those comments and questions in the live chat. Jason Parker, NBC6 with us, of course. Jason, how's it going?
Executive producer? Can I put that on business cards?
You can, sure.
Oh,
that's been the case for quite some time here.
Executive producer.
You are executive producer.
MarkRogersTV. That's executive producer, MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. That's a lot on one business card.
It's going to take you places, I'm sure.
I mean, dozens of people are waiting to get that card.
Dozens.
Dozens.
6 or 7, 8.
Dozens. Also, just like the crowd at the end of the Miami Duke game. That was also dozens of people were left in the stadium for that one. I had to get a shot in the first minute. Obviously, I missed last week's episode, but I had to get a shot in there.
Whatever is going on down there.
Yikes.
I posted my state of the program video on the Miami channel.
Did you just show a picture of a dumpster fire or what?
I showed a picture of Mario Cristobal.
So a dumpster fire. Got it. Okay, cool.
I only set up the punchlines. I let you fill that in either way.
We will discuss that next week, obviously, with Cam Underwood from State of the U. He's confirmed we'll have a special edition of Florida State Seminoles Live, Miami Live, next Wednesday. Hopefully, God willing, after Florida State win over Georgia Tech. Please, God, please.
Listen up, folks. What Jason's setting up here, 6 to 8 Eastern next Wednesday night for a full 2 hours, both here on the Florida State channel and the Miami channel. That should be a whole lot of fun.
It's going to be amazing. I think one of us, between Logan, Cam, or I, one of us may drop a curse word. I'm not going to lie. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right. It's okay. It's all right. Let's
just not
stream them in multiples.
Just one.
Okay. I enjoy getting you guys together because then I just kick back and just enjoy the fireworks.
I don't know why are you choosing violence with us? Why, Mark?
It's fun.
Okay, got it.
And it's fun to witness the live chat, of course, too.
Exactly.
And we're in a place where it's interesting to follow the narratives, the storylines, the trajectories of these two teams this season because Florida State has had the more significant wins and to date has had a better season. Miami was supposed to have a better season, was supposed to be the better team. They started ranked. Florida State dipped into the rankings briefly, but Miami's been the preseason ranked team. And as late as even that Texas A&M game when we thought Texas A&M was a good team and Miami challenged them on the road, I would have still thought that Miami was probably the better team. But no, Florida State can at least hold it together and give a capable effort against a quality team.
While I do enjoy this anti-Miami banter, trust me, I'm here for it. Let's focus on one thing and one thing only if you're a Florida State fan. Beating Georgia Tech in the regular season for the first time since 2003. That's our priority this week. Then we can worry about the tropical storms next week.
Well, just so the players are focused on Georgia Tech, the fans can do whatever they want.
No, we have to be, Mark, we have to be focused. We are still, let's be honest, we're in a 3-game losing streak. Yes, there were 3 ranked teams. Yes, we gave away the game against NC State. I will admit it. That's the frustrating one. We should be at least 5-2 right now at this point. But we're where I said we'd be at the start of the season. I said we'd be 4-3 at the bye week. We're 4-3 at the bye week. Now it's the reset mode. Mike Norvell has talked about that. This is the reset at this point. You've got 5 games. We'll talk about this over the course of the next hour. I believe Florida State will become bowl eligible. I think there are at least 2 wins in these last 5 games of the season, but you cannot look too far ahead at this point.
You know who's showing up right now to give us a boost? Give us a little punch, a power punch.
It's one of 2 options.
Bam!
He got his Wi-Fi, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it's not Wi-Fi. I'm actually I'm on my mobile platform.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with my brand new iPad and all that other stuff, but
Good to see you, man.
my bad. Sorry.
That's what's going on.
It was good to see you.
So if you contribute to Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, not only are you going to get James Coleman some Wi-Fi that works, but now we're going to get him a cell phone stand.
My phone fell down because it heard you say that in the next 5 games, there's only 2 wins.
No. I said there are at least 2 wins that will be bowl eligible. No.
Well, hopefully it'll be this Saturday as well.
I hope. Hey, but let's be honest. We cannot look too far ahead. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, I'm not saying that the Miami game might not be close if we decide that we don't want to play, but like, I'm not finna. I'm just not. I'm not. I can't. It doesn't. What was the movie with Al Pacino where he was spitting when he was coaching? Any given Sunday? Any given Saturday. But at the same, you know what? You're right. Ohio State could lose to whatever Sisters of the Poor team they play this weekend.
Yes.
They could.
I believe they're playing Penn State.
In state, they're not exactly the Sisters.
Well, no, they're a little bit better.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're a little bit better.
A little bit.
So, but hey, just at this point, just let's get win 5. Win 5 this week. That's all. Then we can worry about the tropical storm.
One game at a time.
Absolutely. I mean, they've already been downgraded. They may be the tropical depressions if they lose this week to Virginia. Who knows?
Are we going to have people next week from Miami?
Yes, Cam Underwood will be joining us next week.
I got to make sure. What am I doing next week?
Yes.
You're joining us.
Check this out, James.
You're joining Mark and I next week. 2 hours. Can't stop, won't stop. That's what you're doing next week.
Yeah.
I may hand out a flat rate payment to a contributor on a live stream for the first time ever to James if he shows up. I don't know. I don't know that it's going to be much, but it might be the first time ever. I love when all you guys mix it up.
It's just quite interesting, just the way things have changed in the last few weeks.
That's exactly what I was talking about before you came on.
And the fact that the best thing is that people haven't deleted their tweets. So you can remind them of the energy in which they had and the feelings that they had. But I do love the fact that, you can just on the internet, you can make believe anything that you want. You can just start talking about stuff and completely forget who you were and how you acted. That's why I don't like John Ruiz because I think he's a liar, but I also admire him because he just talks.
I mean, he's not in jail yet, so he still can talk freely. So he hasn't been indicted for any fraud yet.
Yes, the internet has made a lot of men in particular mighty brave. They're really not, but they can act brave. Because of course, they can hide behind the phone or the laptop.
Guys, we've got a whole week to focus on them. Let's one game at a time, guys. Last time Mark got us ahead of ourselves, we lost 3 in a row. I blame Mark for this. So I like traditional. We win out all 5 games. Mark Rogers, where's an FSU hat episode? Mark?
I need some incentive to do this. Like, this is all risk and no reward for me. What's the deal here? I don't mind if Florida State wins 5 consecutive games. I enjoyed that, actually. I have a soft spot in my heart now for Florida State football. And then if they I've got no benefit here. There's no payoff for me.
I'm just saying, you should. A little garden and gold on you might add some color to that room.
There's no benefit to me there. It's got to be a better deal than that. All right. We did want to talk about the flip, right? So we got Roderick Kearney, interior offensive lineman, top 10 in the country, roughly a top 150 player out of Lakeland, I believe.
No, he's from Jacksonville. He's from
I don't know. I was talking about somebody else. I think
he's not from Jacksonville.
Excuse me.
Orange Park, Florida.
Orange Park. I apologize.
That is a surrounding county.
Is that Clay County?
Yeah, that's Clay County.
Okay, that's Clay County. I apologize. He's not from Duval, where James is right now. It's not. It's a more of an interesting commit because he is the one who committed to Florida State shortly after taking a visit to the University of Florida. It's also not a shocking decommit. There have been rumors probably for about the last month that he was going to decommit. Does it suck that he's going to the University of Florida, or is now orally committed to the University of Florida? Yes, it does suck in that regard. That being said, it is not a shocker. Florida State is stocked up at the offensive line position. So, I mean, to him, I would say best of luck. You obviously want to enjoy losing to Georgia more often, so go ahead. I mean, you know, if he wants to go spend the rest of his time in Gainesville, that's his decision to make that horrible mistake. But James, what do you think about this flip?
I think he's a good athlete. I think he's a good prospect. I think when you look at what Alex Atkins has been able to do with the offensive line in the last class, he brought in 10 guys. He has Lucas Simmons, where we really need to address the tackle position. And I also know that Florida State has had options. Once he started wavering about 6 weeks ago, it's fair to say, Alex Atkins and them, he threatened to kind of go on an unofficial visit. They kind of said, you do it, and we'll pull the Scully. And it's kind of like, if you're wavering, Alex Atkins is kind of you're in or you're not type of guy. And he spent enough time with the offensive line and at Florida State to kind of know what it is that he wants to do and what he doesn't want to do. And I've had the luxury of being able to watch film on him and another prospect here in the Jacksonville area called Jordan Hall. And God bless him. I wish you success. That's what I stated that way.
Does that mean you don't think this is much of a loss for Florida State? I feel like that's where you're going with that one, James.
I will say his junior year was a lot better than his senior year. And that does not mean that he won't be a good prospect, that he won't turn out to be something very, very good. But typically what you want to see is guys peaking as they go through college. Not a guy who did very well one year and then they're resting on their laurels. You want to be able to see somebody be able to consistently get better. Now, it's not all his fault. He's on a really, really bad team in Orange Park. They haven't won very many games. It's your senior year. A lot of other things are going on. But that being said, we need winners at Florida State. We need guys that are going to come in, contribute, and be the positive force into the locker room, and not nothing that's going to detract. And whether you believe it or not, we've seen it in the 3-game spell where we've lost games at Florida State. Losing is contagious. Losers continue to lose. Like when bad things happen to people, we see people like, man, it seems like all the bad things, they can't catch a break. It just seems like they are attracting that bad energy. I don't want that in my locker room. Bring me some guys who are coming from playoff-bound teams that are winning, that want to be dominant. And then maybe 10 years down the road, we can go find guys like this and hope that we can affect them in the right way. But there's no bashing to the kid. I think the kid will probably he could be good. But the one thing I tell fans all the time is I just look back on the 2002 class that I came in. I want to say like 7 of us didn't show up. And most of them, you don't remember who they are. So every class, there's about 5 or 6 guys that you'll remember. And I think if you look at Florida's success recently, Dan Mullen's first class, I remember I got in trouble with Florida fans by saying about 10 players from that signing class won't make it. This kid will make it, but I think we won't remember a lot of these kids in the signing class in 5 years.
Along those lines, what you said, a quick question of follow-up. Do you think that this was a decision that was made weeks ago, or do you think that the losing streak, and obviously, once again, it was a losing streak to 3 ranked teams. Let's give them a little bit of a credit at this point. But do you think that this was a decision that was made because of that losing streak, or do you think this was something that had been in the works for a while?
I think this is a decision that this kid had been feeling for quite some time. And I think it just finally went on ahead and did what he needed to do and put Florida State in a situation where now they have another open scholarship. But I believe we were going to take Chester, and I'm trying to remember it's offensive lineman from the boot from out of Louisiana area, if I remember correctly. But I think those are 2 guys that I know Alex Atkins has not quit on. Plus, I know they plan on hitting the transfer portal again heavily for a couple other different players. So if it's not a freshman that's an instant impact guy, I'm really not crying about it. I think our class is going to finish. We're going to sign 20 high school kids. Our class is going to finish top 15, which would be the highest of the Mike Norvell era. And I think you're going to have the guys who come in as freshmen are going to be contributors like Keem Williams. And watch this weekend of of who's coming in, and where you got guys like Desmond, which I talked about in fifth quarter, Desmond Ricks reclassifying and coming on a visit, and us in Georgia being the two major contributors, also having Baxter coming in on an official visit to recruit. Just pay attention to some of these guys that we're getting into late. That's more of the vibe you need to get. Florida and Miami are having the benefit of having first-year coaches that are selling the future. We didn't do a great job of that, but right now, the best way you can handle recruiting, beat the hell out of Georgia Tech, beat the hell out of Miami, and Thanksgiving on Black Friday, make it extremely black for Florida fans.
Hey, big game. Question about scouting an offensive lineman on a bad team. I would think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, tough to scout a quarterback, wide receiver, running back on a bad team, because obviously if the quarterback's on his back, it's tough to scout him if he's not got no time to throw or he's got bad wide receivers. Same thing with the wide receiver. It's the most dependent position on the team. Running back, no offensive line. Obviously, you can still scout him and see the athleticism. But an offensive lineman, if he's really good on a bad team, is that the easiest position to scout on a bad team?
I think both offensive line and defensive line isn't hard to scout. Like, you literally just look, like when I'm looking at a tackle, especially where he plays in high school, I'm looking to see, does that side of the line go away? Creekside High School, I think, and that kid ended up signing to Florida last year. I got a chance to play against him and coach against him, excuse me. And I can tell you this, if my son were the defensive end at Mandarin High School last year, I would have had to see that kid and his daddy in the parking lot after the game. That's how much he abused our guy, and nobody knew who he was. And I just couldn't believe it. I was just like, yo, that guy whooped our kid's butt. Not the entire night. It was a long night. You can see some of those aspects in there, but it's just not what I feel. It's not. I think you can get that other places. That's just my opinion. I believe you can get that other. Plus, I believe the position that he's playing right now, he's not going to play in college. He's going to be an interior lineman. It's going to be at 6'4". He's going to be a guard. That's just the way the game dictates. And I'll give people another scout. Jordan Hall is a young man on the west side. That's the kid I was talking about. Jordan Hall literally affected not one aspect of the game. Now, if you're a D lineman, in particular a D tackle, we don't have an offensive lineman that's probably going to be able to walk onto a college, let alone play. He should have been in our backfield the entire night and giving us fits. Instead, we ran for over almost 300 yards, and we threw for a ton, and he was nowhere near there. Conversely, there's a kid who is at Atlantic Coast who's on a team that's defeated, that sucks. His dad, it escapes me. His dad played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a defensive end that literally gave us fits every play. It was annoying, and we had to figure out what to do to counteract him. One guy is considered an All-American. The other guy's a rising junior, I believe. That's a no-star. It's at the end of the day, you got to play the game, and it's not about camp. The camps help, but at the end, I like seeing film, and I like seeing these guys in action, and I like seeing these guys do more. Like, now, Hall talks a lot more than what I believe Kearney did. If you had to ask me which one if I could choose which one, James, in a perfect world that would actually come to Florida State, I would have kept Kearney. But I'm just saying, a lot of these guys, these are two guys that I've happened to have a chance to see. And again, nothing bad about those young men. I want them to be successful. It's just different for me when I tell people to come to Florida State. I believe they're Power 5 players. I just don't want them wearing guarding the goal.
All right, talking Florida State with all of you each and every Wednesday night, 6 o'clock Eastern time. Do us a favor, bring some folks with you next week. You still have time to do it this week. We've only been here for 20 minutes. We got 30, 40 minutes left, so bring some folks with you. Jason Parker on the line, NBC 6. Big game, James Coleman and his plethora of platforms here. James, let people know where to find you.
Here we go. Here's the 20 minutes of James's platforms. Go ahead.
Love it.
First and foremost, smash the like button. Please make sure you like this and retweet it. But basically, at SportsDen _live, we're probably going to change that Twitter handle here shortly. But that's how you find us. 3 days a week, we do big games BS, and we'll have inside drills as well as Dope Boys coming back here on that platform shortly. We also have, Mikinopi 1851 is a NIL platform that's signing a lot of athletes, trying to give them the opportunities to develop themselves as media brands, not just getting NIL money, but doing it the right way. And of course, for all the breaking news, join our Discord, the original Discord, fifth quarter college football. It's not just FSU, but we have literally almost every major school. We have one, but the FSU one is the most popular one, the biggest one. And that's where I drop breaking news on the ticker.
James, I want to take you back for a moment. I want to take you back to a date in history. September 13th, 2003. It was a warm, hot as hell day in Tallahassee, Florida. And at night, at 8 o'clock at night, in front of 82,000 people, a certain team with a certain number 36 on the field beat Georgia Tech by the power score of 14-13 in a game that was way too close for those of us who were in the stands in the student section. James, can you believe that's the last time Florida State beat Georgia Tech in the regular season? Obviously, we've lost them in 2009. We lost them in 2015. We lost them in 2020. Obviously, we haven't played them as much as we would like and some fans would like. But can you believe that that's the last time Florida State beat Georgia Tech in the regular season?
Yeah, I'm glad you added context to that. Yes. It's not that we've had 20 years of losses. It's just been quite some time. But
plus 2 championship games.
Right. Yes, we beat them twice, 2012 and 2014 ACC championship game. But it's more the fact that you look at 2009, the 49-44 defensive optional battle. It was Bobby Bowden's last season. The horrible blocked field goal in 2015 that was returned for a touchdown on the final play that they won 22-16. And then somehow beating us in the opener behind the wicked arm of Jeff Sims to beat us 16-13 in the 2020 season opener.
Which was the funniest thing about the 2020 season opener is that, and this is why I always tell people, like, and again, people have the misconception that I don't like Mike, and I love Mike. Me and Mike have a great relationship. But I told people, y'all, the way that our reporters were writing about him, I'm like, you guys are really building this guy up to tear him down tremendously. Like, they were like, he's playing for everything. The stretch, he's even playing for rain delays. And that was an article written. I'm like, then we have a rain delay that we were leading in, and then we lose coming out of the rain delay. And I'm like, this to a team that was doing bull in the ring for warmups, which I had never seen before. Bull in the ring on a college level. I've seen it in Pop Warner, my son's Pop Warner leagues, but I've never seen it on that level. But it's interesting, and that those Georgia Tech teams are different. The Georgia Tech teams that they always played us tough. Even when we went to Atlanta, when we played them in 2002, and then when we played them in 2003, I remember getting the fullback dive on that play and getting hit, like probably one of my hardest hits that you'll never recognize because they hit me all body. Like that's when they get your soul. But Ernie Sims also on the kickoff broke one of their players' orbital bone. Like his eye was popping out, dented the face mask, and it was amazing. He took 2 steps on the kickoff return and then just ran straight at the guy, caught him not looking. It was disgusting and amazing. But it's just one of those teams that they're just weird, man. Like when they ran the wing tee, they always have some kind of guys that kind of fell through the ranks when you think of Calvin Johnsons of the world. And even with with athletic quarterbacks, even going back to the 99 championship year when they had Joey Hamilton. Like, so again, it's just they always have 1 or 2 guys that are able to keep them in games. And one of the things that Florida State has always been, and it still is as the brand, is a circle date game. So we will be a game that like Jeff Sims, I'm trying to think of my young man went to Florida, went to my high school. He went to Florida State Developmental Research School, signed to Auburn, transferred to Georgia Tech. So I know his mom, Diamond, will be in the stands, and he's there ready to circle that game. There's guys who are going to be ready to play, but I think this is where we have to see what Mike is as a game day consigliere. Is he going to come out there? Is he going to be the guy that falls off? Or is he going to be the Boston College Mike? Because that's what we need. We need Boston College Mike. We need Fuller tell them they need to get their heads out of their asses and ball out. So hopefully they will break that trend, and we'll be talking. No, hopefully it won't be 20 years from another Georgia Tech win.
Eric Reed, that's your guy, right? Eric Reed, the Georgia Tech from Auburn transfer. That's what I'm looking at right here. Auburn defensive back transfers to Georgia Tech, May of 22. Eric Reed Jr. No? Okay.
No, that's not it.
Okay.
It'll come to me. It'll come to me in a second.
James, quick follow-up on what you're saying about what we're seeing from this Georgia Tech team. This is a Georgia Tech team that started the year 1-3, blowout losses to Clemson, blowout loss to UCF, and then they fired Jeff Collins as coach. Since then, you get the upset win over Pitt, the defending ACC champion, an upset win over Duke, who just came down here and dog-stomped Miami, and then you have the loss last week to Virginia. So I guess my question is, are we going to see this Georgia Tech team, the Georgia Tech team that seemed to be revitalized, or do you think that loss to Virginia, a bad Virginia team, who hopefully will beat Miami this week, please God, let that happen. Do you think that loss to Virginia is taking Georgia Tech back a step?
I think that the loss of the injury of Jeff Sims coming, and them not being able to, even when Jeff Sims was there, it was still an ugly football game. I didn't realize Virginia was as bad as what they were. I thought having a quarterback returning, that would be better, but it showed you that their defense has a little bit of nastiness in it to where they can keep the offense in it. And if you don't play discipline, they're opportunistic. They're one of the top teams in the nation when it comes to turnovers. Way better than us, Florida State, at turnovers. But I think it's they're just bad. They're bad without Jeff Sims. Without Jeff Sims, they don't stand a chance. With Jeff Sims already being hobbled and hurt, they don't stand a chance because they can't score. And that's really what the problem is they can't put up points. And I think that's where our defense is not as bad as what our fan base is being fed to believe. They're a top 30 defense. They're not far. Like, hear me in what I'm saying. I don't believe they're close to Bama, but from a statistical perspective, they're not far off from that. Now, it's funny that we have some people on the beat who all they do is provide analytics, but they'll tell you that you shouldn't believe in the statistics, which makes absolutely no sense because all analytics is statistics. But if our defense can stop them and our offense can do something that they haven't been able to do since Boston College, put up points and play complementary ball, I think you should see you can see a game that's, because this teams like this that fire their coaches, they kind of don't really have hope for what they want to play for. I mean, because they're 3-3, but like when you look at the back five, do you really expect them to go 3-3 in the back five as well? I don't, but they're asking for this to be over. And if you can go out there and just make it peaceful. But I don't know if they have that, if Florida State has that in them yet, but I would love to see it.
On the flips, if I could ask one more quick question, on the flip side of that, from the Florida State perspective, obviously we talked about how Florida State's been dealing with injuries of late. Trayshawn Ward was back out of practice. Mike Norvell said he's been making improvements. Hasn't been saying much about Fabian Lovett, how Fabian Lovett still seems to be a little behind. With what Florida State has ahead of them, looking past Georgia Tech for a moment, when you have Miami, at Syracuse, and Florida in 3 of the final 4 games, seeing what you have with Georgia Tech, and I'm not trying to disrespect Georgia Tech in any way, do you maybe sit a couple guys who are a little bit dinged up, knowing that you're going to need all hands on deck for Miami, for Syracuse, and for Florida?
I don't think you do that because you kind of already started the Wake Forest game off like that. If you looked at Jerry Verse didn't start the Wake Forest game off, but he eventually came back in kind of on a pitch count. You need to go ahead and establish dominance. If anything, knock them out early and then let those guys get those early reps in. I think that's the way you go and do it. Maybe Trayshawn Ward isn't your starter because you're getting enough from Trey Benson and Lawrence Toafili, but you weave him in so that he's getting game reps again. One of the things when you're coming off of injury, you want to know how you're going to respond to a hit. I remember when I had my labrum surgery, I didn't get a chance to engage in physicality until fall camp. I had that in February 13th, 2004. I didn't get a chance to hit anybody until like the middle of August of 2004. And the first thing you want to do is you just want to get that first hit out the way so you can know how you're going to respond and how you're going to feel. So I think it's easier to get that out of the way against a Georgia Tech and get in game shape as opposed to, you're waiting against Miami in a game that's a little bit more intense because more is on the line as far as pride and bragging rights and state recruiting than playing against Georgia Tech, who, even though they're the same spot, it's just Miami, the logo holds different than Georgia Tech's logo.
This Georgia Tech team, they're playing for something now, so I'm not going to put that past them. And so, James can relate to this and tell us what happened in that locker room to a certain extent, because you got Jeff Collins, and they lost 13 consecutive ACC games. They'd lost 10 consecutive FBS games. They show him the door. They bring in Key. I can't remember his first name, but the offensive line coach takes over. They didn't turn into Alabama overnight or anything, but they go from being completely pathetic to they beat a pretty decent Duke team in overtime. They beat Pitt. And then if Jeff Sims would have played, I watched that game against Virginia as well. That was just an ugly game. And it wasn't ugly just because most people think low scoring means ugly. No, it was just ugly because Jeff Sims gets hurt. The backup was not ready for that moment. Really late in the game, actually started to feel it a little bit and started to sling it, and he got comfortable and led them down the field. But they had receivers dropping the ball left and right. But they've somehow, whatever this offensive line coach has found there, they're playing with a little motivation now.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're not going up against dead bodies. There is a sense of pride that a lot of people have, but again, that pride gets taken out when you kind of go out there and bash them in. You're like, oh my God, here it is. There's some things that you can always say. It's called like the game got away from you really quick. So basically you're just kind of getting thrown in there. But I will say that was impressive what the young guy was able to do later on in the game. But what I also noticed is later on in the game is that those guys' body language was just like, if we win, we win. If we don't, we don't. Not the quarterback. Other people lining up slow in a no-huddle situation. And even the young man's inability to understand where the game was. And because I remember commenting on it. Like,
the last play of the game?
It's the last play of the game. Like, why are you running out of bounds? Like, there's just – if you throw an interception at this point, who cares? But chuck it up, give yourself a chance. Yeah. It reminded me of what Tate Rodemaker did in the practice here in Jacksonville, and Mike Norvell jumped his ass because they were doing situationals, and he ran out of bounds. He was like, why would you run out of bounds? There's no time left on the clock. It makes no sense, but it's just kind of – that's just what I mean. They do. Everybody should – I know fans don't care. I haven't asked our players because, hell, they haven't been to one in so long. Bowl games are fun. Shreveport, Louisiana might not be fun, but Miami, Jacksonville is probably more fun now than it was when I played. New Orleans, Atlanta, all these different, Charlotte, all these different places that you can go to experience are good. And so you are playing for a bowl berth. If you could get to a bowl game, these coaches are coaching for that. Because imagine if he's basically on an audition. If he can make this team into a bowl eligible team after what they came off of, maybe they'll be kicking themselves and trying to figure out what the hell went wrong with Collins and what can you do better, as opposed to bringing in an outside entity like a Deion Sanders was rumored and other people. But I just don't see it, and it's still too quick. Because you still got guys, you had for however long he was there, you had a wing T offense. I don't think people understand how different that is from the rest of college football. You have 260 and 200 to 285 pound offensive linemen that pull and cut. You don't recruit wide receivers that can run the entire route tree. You recruit wide receivers that can run post, curls, and go routes. That's basically and then some drag. Tight ends that run drags. And you recruit a bunch of different running backs. That's an entirely different offensive system than what Jeff Collins came in. And I think he made a mistake with trying to come in and flip it too quick. But at the end of the day, that's what Georgia Tech was. And it's unfortunate, but it's going to take a little while to get rid of that.
James, I want to piss off a couple of fan bases real quick if you want to join me on this one for a moment. It's what we do best here with Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. There's 5 games left in the season for Florida State. Which of those 5 teams, Georgia Tech, Miami, Syracuse, Louisiana, and Florida, which team scares you the most at this point? Obviously, there's still plenty of questions left in the season, but which one of those 5 teams scares you the most right now?
Syracuse, because they're playing very well, and they've got a quarterback that's athletic enough, that's tough to tackle. They're also young, so like we're gonna have to see them multiple times. And I mean, I could say Florida, but I don't know where they'll be at by the time we play them. But the only reason I would say Florida is because I have no idea what Florida team is going to show up. The Florida team that played Tennessee played well enough to win offensively. Their defense has 2 guys that should be first-round draft picks, in Brian Cox and Gervin Dexter, who, if they're not, they're definitely draftable guys. They're really, really good. And we don't play scrambling quarterbacks very well. Now, if Anthony Richardson decides that he wants to sit in the pocket and be a quarterback, I like our chances. But if Anthony decides that he wants to go be an athlete out there, that's tough, man. I ain't gonna lie, but I would say Syracuse right now.
I get that, and I understand Syracuse obviously has the best record right now. They're losing their first game last week when they lost a close one to Clemson after having a double-digit halftime lead. For me, and I know I'm going to get ridiculed by some of our other fans and some of the fans of the team that I've been making fun of for the first 36 minutes here of the show, but for me, it's Miami. And for me, it's Miami for the simple reason because of what you said about Florida. And I think I agree with you what you said about Florida. We don't know which Miami team exists right now. We don't know if this is a Miami team that, I'm sorry, I watched them look like crap against Duke. I watched them look like crap against Middle Tennessee State. But I also watched them look competitive somewhat against North Carolina, a team that right now looks like they are the favorite to win the ACC's Coastal Division. This is a Miami team that could go out and just curb stomp Virginia, a bad Virginia team this coming week. But this is a Miami team that also could lose to Virginia. This Miami team could come in 4-4 with some energy against Florida State, or could come in 3-5 and just say, F it, we're done with this season. Just we're done. We don't want to play for a bowl game. We're going to get annihilated by Clemson. We're going to get annihilated by Florida State. We're going to get annihilated by Pitt. I'm more concerned about that because that's what could build up. We could be 5-3, come in here against Miami. If we get upset by a Miami team that I think we were going to come in as a favorite against, that sets up a possibility of getting beat by Syracuse. And then all of a sudden you're 5-5 playing for bowl eligibility against Louisiana and Florida. That's what concerns me right now at this time. I
can see that. The only reason Florida and Syracuse bother me is because I can actually name guys on offense that scare me. I can't name anybody on Miami. Even if TVD plays, TVD has proven that he's the worst quarterback in the state. They probably have a better chance with Jeff Garcia. But Jeff Garcia is not any good either.
Which right now, Miami is not saying whether Van Dyke will even play against Virginia. It's looking like Jake Garcia will start against Virginia if Van Dyke may be out against Florida State. So
like I just post, we do these reels on my show, and I break down the big 3 games. And unfortunately, it was only one game to break down from this past weekend. And it was the Duke game. And Jake Garcia is who's number? What number? 13, right?
13. Jake Garcia, yeah.
So Jake Garcia is 13. Jake Garcia is either blind or cannot read coverage, which is probably a combination of both. He threw an interception that was so egregious to Duke. No, but I'm just giving this one that was a pick 6.
But it was
literally.
He threw 2. He threw 2 where there was literally 3 Duke defenders and not a Miami receiver around.
And that's my point. There wasn't a receiver around for 15 yards. And the young man got the interception, ran into the end zone. First he tossed up to you, then he broke it over his knee. And then he tossed it up again. and then he did the upside down you. It was very disrespectful. I loved it. But if that's what I have to focus on and worry about, also with the offensive line that has had injuries but has not done a very good, excuse me, I apologize, Mark. I'm not trying to be Kanye West version of sports and say anything. I actually like little people. But
you like Jews too, so you like us.
I do.
You're not kind.
But they're small petite offensive linemen, the Polly Pocket, if you will, of their offensive line, and he hasn't done a good job replacing these guys. So when I look at a Verse, when I look at a Derek McClendon, when I look at our matchups there, I actually kind of feel it a little bit more than I do Miami coming back against that. And that's the only reason I say that. And because Anthony Richardson, if he has to play quarterback, I'm not afraid of him. I like Ant, but if Ant has to play quarterback, Ant's not proven this season that he does that very well. But if Ant plays running back that can throw the ball a country mile, that's tough because we haven't done that well against Jaden Daniels at times, who's gone on to show that he's really, really good. We haven't done that well against Louisville starting quarterback. We haven't done that well against, NC State. We were doing cool when they had the quarterback that dropped back, but they bring in the guy that scrambles. We can't even stop him from scrambling. It's just, we just don't do that very well.
And on the flip side of that, going along with Florida, and I look at the schedule aspect of it. I think Florida gets curb stomped this week by Georgia. Mm-hmm. But then they're going to Texas A&M, which Mark said earlier. Texas A&M looked a lot better a month ago than they do at this point right now. You've got South Carolina coming home, for your home finale. South Carolina, I don't think is as good as their record indicates. I think Florida could win that one. And then they've got Vanderbilt before us. So there is a possibility, a real chance, Florida could come in losers of 3 of their next 4 games before they play Florida State, or winners of 3 of their next 4. That's what I'm saying. That's what concerns me right now. That's what frustrates me about losing the NC State game. Losing the NC State game, and I get it because I'm just going to say it. Clemson and Wake Forest beat us. The games were not as close as the scores indicated. I'm going to give Wake Forest and Clemson credit. Florida State made it look respectable at the end. Wake Forest and Clemson dominated both of those games. NC State bothers me because right now you're 5-2. You could be, if you beat NC State, you don't let them come back based on their field goal kicker. You're 5-2 at this point. You beat Georgia Tech. You're already bowl eligible going into that Miami game at 6-2, and then Miami, Florida, Syracuse are all playing with house money. And if you win 2 games, if you win 3 games at that point, everything else is just a bonus at that point. I'm just really concerned about going into the Miami game with only 5 wins because there is a chance Florida State could. Florida State could have a great last 5 games of the season, go somehow 9-3, qualify for the Orange Bowl, and trust me, the Orange Bowl committee wants us. They do. I've talked to executives of the Orange Bowl committee. They want us bad. It could happen. Things could happen there. There's also a possibility Florida State could go 6-6. So that's just what concerns me. I don't want to be going into that Louisville game 5-5, praying to God we can beat, not Louisville, Louisiana, praying to God we at least beat either Louisiana or Florida.
If that happens, then that's when you have to have very difficult conversations about Mike Norvell. And the reality is, you can like the guy. You can say it looks better. And all of those things can be 100% true. But the reality is it's a tangible business. Like as I always say, I can work a lot, but if I'm not bringing in any money, it doesn't pay my bills. The goal is to win games. And I again, like Mike, hate the Mike. I hate how they keep using the old man's quotes to justify a lot of this stuff. Like, you lose big, then you lose little, then you win little, then you win big. Yeah, but Bobby had 1 losing season. Like, he didn't have a string of losing seasons. He had 1 in his entire career. And then he went to 30. He had 40 straight winning seasons and 36 straight bowl games. So, you have to understand context is everything. If Mike is 6-6, I don't think Mike survives. He may survive this recruiting class, but he's on a really thin ice for next season because now what we do have at Florida State, we have stability at athletic director. We did not have that in the beginning. The biggest mistake that I don't believe you fire a coach in a year and a half. And 2, I don't believe interim athletic directors should make permanent decisions. Interim athletic directors and presidents on their way out. That's the decision that should be made for a current president and an athletic director who you know is going to build the program. With Mike Alford is about business. His job is to get Florida State athletics into the new century. So where Mike, this is really about him, because you're not going to just be able to say our guys try, gosh darn it, our guys try hard. They fought to the end. Well, that's the minimum. Like I joke about Georgia Tech, but that's what got Jeff Collins fired. Guys not doing the minimum. We got to get guys doing the minimum, and then how you keep your job is by having guys go above and beyond. Mm-hmm. And they got to win these games. And like you said, Jason, and every fan should. You can be a fan of Florida State and still love the players and the guys and be critical. I don't know what happened to America, what made us so soft to where we can no longer. If I'm critical of something, I have to hate it. Like, no, I can judge what I see and say I don't like this aspect of it and still support it. Perfect example, I hate what Kanye said about Jews, but I'm wearing Yeezys today. I like his product. I don't support that. I hate what he did, and I believe he should be fired on every aspect of what he did. Everything he's getting, he deserves it. If I can't say that, then I'm not being a real person. Not saying that, but I'm just saying, like, on those things. If I can't say Mike Norvell shouldn't have lost those three freaking games. Sorry about that. Those 3 freaking games, then I shouldn't even be. What are we doing?
It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, James. You hate my people. It's okay.
No, man, you're my guy. Remember when you came up and hugged me?
I did.
You caught me. You caught me off guard, right?
I don't. James wore the greatest shirt. I want to say that. Shout out to James for wearing the greatest shirt ever. It was Burt Reynolds with the Native American headdress on it. It was phenomenal. I want that shirt. The guy on Tennessee Street sent me a shirt, extra large. I needed one.
Yeah, I remember when I bought it from him. I said I need that shirt. It's dope. You probably want a large. I was wearing an extra large.
Okay, I'll take that. But no, I agree with James 100%. I'll even take it a step further. Florida State has to go 7-5 or better for Mike to keep his job, because especially when you start off a season 4-0, and once again, I'm not excusing the 3 losses, but I get it. 3 ranked teams. We're not at Clemson's level yet. We're not even at this point at Wake Forest's level right now. When you're 4-3, you have to finish these last 5 games with a winning record, at least 7-5 or better, or I think you have to evaluate the coaching position.
It's not about how much I like you. It's about wins.
Right.
And you had all the men, because you said it great. So we did lose to Wake Forest and we did lose to Clemson. Clemson more of a loss in my opinion, but Wake Forest, here's what the defense did. They scored on the opening drive of the second half. They did not score again until a meaningless field goal at the end of the game. You had every opportunity to come back and win that game. You're I think we missed a goal, but half the team did what they, 1/3 of the team did their job. The other 2/3 just simply didn't execute. And that's a problem. Good teams find ways to win. Bad teams find ways to lose. And right now we're still trying to grow into a good team. And that's indicative of coaching. And it's hard to say, but this ain't about sound bites. You got to get on that field and you got to win, man. The old man full of sound bites, but the old man also got it out of us. And I think that's what we got to realize. We got to have guys go out there and put it on line. I told people this: show me you love your coach by how you play. Don't tell me you love your coach. Show me.
Mark's keeping the banner up right now with the evil D word that he knows makes my blood boil and cringe. Go ahead, Mark.
Had another member join just a few hours ago. Bring him in. Join the Discord. Talk Knowles all the time. Sign up at patreon.com. Search MarkRogersTV. That's what you do right there. 24/7, 365. And you get my picks as well. 32-17 against the spread the last 3 weekends, folks.
I've hit the dumpster fire on my picks.
I don't know about that. You get Jason's picks
I took
here
Duke
as well, and your picks have been strong.
I took Duke in the points. So I won that one last week. That was just mostly out of personal hatred of the University of Miami, but I'll still take it. All right, James. 12 o'clock Saturday, ACC Network, probably followed by some lacrosse match or some traditions of North Carolina. Why the hell are the Tar Heels and all that other stuff? But 12 o'clock, Bobby Bowden Field, Florida State, Georgia Tech. Does Florida State get their first regular season win over the Yellow Jackets since 2003?
And we cover.
I was surprised to see that line.
Bold.
3?
Bold.
Did it? It's still. You said it's 23 now.
I saw 23.
Cool. I told Antonio Cromartie we win by 25, so I'm going. I'm good. Anything over 25, that's too much.
So, what's your score prediction? We need a score. Mark's got to put a score on a banner, so he needs a score.
All right. I'm going to say they're going to score a fluke touchdown. So we're going to go 35-10.
I saw 23. I saw 24. Would you say 31-10?
35-10.
35-10. Jason, you're up.
I was at that game. James was on the field. He had a better seat than I did, although I think I was like row 2 in the student section at that point. I had a scam. I was an RA in Kellum Hall. Rest in peace, Kellum Hall. We had a good scam. I used to do a good thing with scamming the student tickets. I think Florida State wins. I don't think it's going to be the same way we beat Boston College. I'd love a beatdown like we did against Boston College. I would absolutely love that. I think Florida State does enough to get a comfortable win and saves their energy for Miami. And I think the stretch run of the month of November will decide what this team will do. I'm going to say Florida State 38, Georgia Tech 17. I think Georgia Tech gets a fluke touchdown in the fourth quarter, maybe a fluke 10 points in the fourth quarter to make it closer than what that score is. But I'm going to say 38-17 Florida State. Hell, at this rate, I'll take 3-0. I don't care.
If the boy who quarterbacked the other night against Virginia is going to start the entire game, and I got to guess, James, that maybe some of these quarterbacks who get their first extended play in a meaningful game for the first time in deer in headlights, but then they get that next week to prep and prepare, kind of come out maybe a different player, some of them, that next go around.
I mean, yeah, you get more reps. You got to think. The one reps all year have been going to Jeff Sims. And how practices normally go, especially when you're doing install, got 5 minutes. The first half of that period is all ones. If they mess up and they go over, let's say they go 3.5 minutes, you're not getting every play. And then when you're doing 11 on 11, you're getting most of the work, especially when you're at this back half of the season where you guys got guys banged up and you don't want guys having to do too much. So, and it's different to watch it on film than to see it in real life. But I do know this: guys have not had experience with the type of athletes. I still believe. I think for the reason why I'm disappointed is Florida State has better athletes than they had the last 2 years. He has not seen that kind of speed coming off the edge, and he also has not seen the kind of speed that they'll have at corner. And what you do with young guys now in a game when you have a situation where a quarterback comes in. You go straight base to where until you understand what's happening with you. Now, if you got a chance to study all week, I think they're bringing pressure. And it's one thing you don't get hit in practice. So quarterbacks throw the ball and they get, they've hit the quarterback quite a bit this year in Florida State. So I wish they had more sacks, but they're getting back there. So it'd be interesting to see this young man get baptized.
Typically, my picks are on Patreon. We'll throw a freebie at you there.
Yeah.
29-10, a lot of defense. His wide receivers are bad.
How the hell
they let him down big in that game.
How the hell do you get 29 points?
Over and over.
How do you get 29 points?
Jason, do me a favor. Look at last week's scores. Not every score is 28, 35, 24.
It's fine. I understand. I'm trying to
we miss an extra point,
yeah.
And we get a safety.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, yeah, that sounds like Florida State football.
I'm just saying, like that's the first thing I'm like, you know what? I believe that could happen in our game.
My other thought was 2 touchdowns and 5 field goals. And I thought there's no way in hell we make 5 field goals in a game. We can barely make 1. So that's why I was just trying to figure out what this one. Missed extra point. That sounds like FSU. Got it.
Last thing I want to hear about out of James, because I don't think we weren't together since the North Carolina State game. So 45 seconds left to play, 2nd and 8, losing by 3? Losing by 2, 19-17. Ryan Fitzgerald hit a 47-yarder, but sucked before that. Of course, missed whatever it was, 5 out of 7. They call the play, and Jordan Travis is locked on Micah Pittman. We all know what happened. So I cut a video and basically said, I have no issue with the decision Norvell made to go for a touchdown. I had an issue with the play call. Where are you on that?
Time out. Before you start, I feel a 5-minute James Coleman diatribe going on, so I'm going to head out real quick.
Nah, it's not.
We'll see you next week again. I'll see you next week for our Miami preview show.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Mike is not very good situational play caller. We saw this at LSU when you had a chance to go ahead and put the game out, and you throw a pitch on 2nd down when you could have ran two dives and kick a field goal, and the game would have been out of reach. You put your defense in a better situation. You saw in that, and then we also had what game was it that we lost when we threw? Anyways, so what we're in right now, I don't mind that. I don't think people are saying you don't play for the field goal. We had 45 seconds and 3 timeouts, if I remember correctly. You don't walk away from a game with bullets left in your gun. You have the entire playbook at your disposal. Now, what you had was, and then we ran a similar play, and Micah Pittman scored a touchdown on that. Now, it was similar, but it wasn't the same play. And I saw a guy, I think it was Glennon, tried to draw it up and explain it away. Well, you obviously have the corner route. You have a curl that's there as well, if I remember correctly. But you've got your threat that everybody's looking for in Johnny Wilson. Like the first play, we had a tight end. This one, we had Johnny Wilson off the line, and he's running a backside slant. Everybody rotated to Micah Pittman. You've got your 6'7" wide receiver one-on-one to the backside. I blame Mike for putting Jordan in that situation with the play call, but I blame Jordan for making a bad decision and not only throwing a ball not well, because had he thrown the ball to the pylon, it's at least a race to the ball, as opposed to basically their guy just had position. But to Johnny Wilson, who may drop it, but it's just him and the DB, and he's a bigger target. That would have been my only thing. But I think with your running game working very well, and Jordan Travis's number one strength that I don't understand why we aren't using. You used it early in Clemson, and that's when you scored. It made them respect the rest of the running game. You used it early in North Carolina State, and then you went away from it. Why aren't you going into situations where you're making the defense have to guard for 3 things: a running back, Jordan Travis, and the pass? I, for life of me, don't understand this.
Yeah, I'm watching that game and I'm thinking, I'm going with Jordan Travis. He's my best player. I'm putting the game in his hands. But then they run that play, and I'm like, it just seemed like it, just kind of a jump ball. Let's throw it out there. Versus there's a lot of concepts you could run, rub routes that get guys open rather than just
very basic. And again, like I said, you got 3. You have what you want on the backside with your best wide receiver in that situation. If I'm running a corner route, I'm running a corner route to the guy who's tall as a power forward in the NBA. And I'm throwing it up to the moon and taking my chances. I'm not throwing it to the shortest wide receiver I have. And that's nothing against Micah Pittman. If I'm running a slant and I want the body of a guy and I'm going to kind of underthrow it at where the sticks are at, but I know this guy's built like a running back, I'm going to Micah Pittman in that situation. But I also understand where Mike's kind of coming from. You've had drops from all your wide receivers. You've had all these different things. But at the end of the day, you have to go with sound football. big target, or like you just said, who is the best player on Florida State's team? Who has won me every game that I have as a coach? I'm going to lose with Jordan Travis not throwing that pass. I'm going to lose with Jordan Travis running the ball and using his legs. Similar to what NC State said, my quarterback doesn't throw the ball very well. I'm going to make my quarterback a running back, and we're going to see how it goes. I think Mike Norvell has been too much of a player's coach. I said this about Tag, right? And I think it was when the Tag got fired because he lost when he lost the Miami game. Tag did not play Cam Akers, who was coming off of an injury, was a little bit banged up. Somebody asked me, what would you do? I said, I'm not losing my job because of Cam Akers. Cam Akers going to get 30 carries, and Cam Akers might hate me after this, but I'm going to keep my job. I'm not losing that game without taking at least one run. And at least, if nothing else, we can go straight up the middle. I'm going to ask, what's the dude's name? Fitzpatrick. I'm going to say, hey, man, what are you the most comfortable kicking with just in case? Coach, get it right down the middle for me. Bet. Jordan, when you scramble, if you can't, before you get tackled, get down right in the middle of the field. And that's what we're doing. But, hey, if ifs were a fifth, we'd all be drunk.
William, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate your super sticker. And Kareem, why don't we do this, Kareem? Listen to me, Kareem. We're way over, and I got to run. Save your question. Bring it back next week. You can put it in bold. You don't need to send us another contribution. We appreciate your contribution, but that's worth a little discussion, talking about the stretch drive, how it relates to recruiting and all that. But thank you for that, Kareem. Bring it back next week. Again, we will answer it for you then. James, appreciate you hanging out with us. Great to see you, man.
All right, Mark. Bye.
We've got Miami minus 5 minutes ago over on the Miami channel. So get there now, and we will see you there.